regular meeting going forward at 8:30 at Tuesday, October 27th. We will call a meeting to order at this time, and I'll read a statement that justifies us by statute to meet by Zoom, which we are this morning, or by telephone, which one of our commissioners is doing. The following statement should be made at the beginning of any meeting that commissioners attend by telephone to ensure the record reflects the necessary information to support telephone or virtual attendance. Number one, it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related peacetime emergency declaration made by Governor Walz in accordance with Minnesota Statutes, Chapter 12. Number two, we have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony offered at today's meeting. Number three, we have also ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting location of the body can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. We have urged the public not to attend this meeting in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic and have ensured that the members of the public can view and monitor the meeting remotely in real time by broadcasting the meeting on the Cook County website. Number four, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have determined that it may be unfeasible for County Auditor Brady Powers, County Attorney Molly Hicken, County Administrator James Yarkey, and members of the Board of Commissioners to be physically present at the county boardroom at the Cook County Courthouse. Lastly, all votes will be conducted by roll call, so each member's vote on each issue will be identified and recorded. Would you please join me as we give the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does anyone have anything to offer for an adjustment to the agenda? We received two items recently as a change of yesterday for Auditor Powers' presentation on our tax bonds that we can go forward with hopefully today. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Mills.
Yes, Commissioner Mills.
Yeah, I have the packet here, but I didn't see the minutes in the packet, and so I didn't know if that was an addendum or if they just were left out this time accidentally, and we should just approve them next time. But I wanted to point that out.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, they weren't submitted.
Okay. We'll do that next meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Mills. With that, we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Okay. Motion to move to accept by Commissioner Mills. Do we have a second?
Starley, support.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Starley supported. We'll have a roll call vote. Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Starley?
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim's aye. Passes unanimously. Do we have anything for public comment that's been submitted in writing, or is there anyone that showed up in the courthouse that would like to address the board this morning? No one, I guess, so we'll move on. The consent agenda items. Is there any commissioner that would like to pull any of these before we take action as a whole? Commissioner Dukirk.
I just need to note for the record that I received financial compensation from Gunflint Pines on the liquor tobacco license renewal.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone else? Then I would entertain a motion to approve as a whole.
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to approve as a whole. Over.
Okay, Commissioner Mills makes a motion. Is there support?
Starley, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. Passes. We'll do a roll call vote on that. Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Starley,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Bershon, aye. Passes unanimously. We'll go into our agenda, and our first item, I saw Kim Shepherd with us. We're going to have oath administered to our assessor, Robert Thompson, and I will turn it over to those two time on how you'd like to do that.
Morning, everybody. Are you ready, Bob?
I am.
All right, do you want to raise your right hand, please? And repeat after me. I, Robert Thompson,
I, Robert Thompson,
do swear and affirm
do swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota and that I will be diligent, faithful, and impartial in the performance of the duties
in the performance of the duties
of the office of County Assessor
of the office of County Assessor
for the County of Cook
for the County of Cook
in the state of Minnesota
in the state of Minnesota
to the best of my judgment and ability
to the best of my judgment and ability
in accordance with the law.
in accordance with the law.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
I'm gonna,
Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Bob, for your commitment to us.
Thanks, everybody.
Move on to Emergency Operations Command update. I see that Grace Granager's with us. I haven't seen Mike unless there's a phone there, but Grace, so would you be ready for your report at this time?
Sure, absolutely. So since I last spoke with you all, gave an update on October 13th, we've entered into a new phase of the pandemic locally. Cases have risen from 10 to 17, and we do have active community spread of the virus within Cook County. So community spread, which is sometimes also called community transmission, basically refers to the virus spreading here within our community. It can refer to someone testing positive, and we know there's a direct link to another person who has also tested positive. That's something we usually find through contact tracing. And community spread can also refer to people who have become infected with the virus in our community, but they can't pinpoint exactly where or how. So within northern Minnesota, across our state, across the upper Midwest, the cases of COVID-19 have surged in recent weeks. Our positivity rate continues to rise. I know sometimes you hear, the reason we have more cases is because we're testing more, and really looking at the positivity rate is a way to get past that. So in public health, we like to see that at or below 5%. And currently it's risen to 6.5%. So that is an indication that the actual viral activity is rising significantly throughout the states. Another way is to look at the pandemic is to look at the percent increase in cases each month. And from September to October across the state of Minnesota, we've seen an 83% increase in new cases of COVID-19. And finally, we are seeing some strain on our regional hospital systems in Duluth as they are routinely operating at or above capacity. So as we enter in this new phase of the pandemic, I think the messaging from public health really stays the same. So we want our community members to take care of themselves. We want people to be looking after their physical health. We want people to be seeking that routine, preventative, and primary care. Get that flu shot. Those are all things that we can do to take care of ourselves and our healthcare partners in this. I've started to explain, I have heard comments from the public wanting to know more about, where is COVID activity in the community? And really, for one, that isn't something we can share because of privacy concerns, but another is really that doesn't help us stay safe. I'm trying to explain all of these precautionary behaviors, kind of like wearing a seatbelt. So we all know that when we get into the car, we buckle up and wear our seatbelt because that's what keeps us safe. And really, I think we can think of these things like keeping 6 feet or more away from people outside of our household, wearing our mask, washing our hands. Those are like our COVID seatbelt. Those are the things we need to do when we go out in public so that we can stay safe through the pandemic. Another thing that I'm really trying to stress as we go into the winter months is finding safe ways to connect. Across the state, we've seen quite a bit of our transmission rise because of small indoor gatherings with family and friends. We know how important it is for our mental health and well-being to stay connected, but I think as we head into the winter months, we need to be very mindful of how we do that safely. Getting together outside, making sure that even when we are with family and friends, we are spaced out, we are wearing masks. We just need to be smart about this. And finally, I think both here in the community and across the state and nation, this idea of pandemic fatigue and pandemic anger is very real, as well as increased anxiety about the pandemic. And so I want to make sure that our community members are really taking care of their mental health just as much as their physical health. We want people to be reaching out. Our community support line, which is our behavioral health response arm of the Emergency Operations Center, is there for community members. It's a great place to call if you don't know where to start and just maybe need someone to listen. So again, that number is 218-877-7071. And now I'll move more into the direct updates from public health within the Emergency Operations Center in these past weeks. Quite a few of them are focused on case investigation, contact tracing. So we had explored a partnership with Lake County and Grand Portage to form a mini region. And we've decided to really make an even smaller mini region and just work very, very closely with Grand Portage on case investigation, contact tracing. We've already started to back one another up for shifts and have been working very well with the staff there, which has been a huge, huge help to the community. We're working on formalizing this partnership with Grand Portage through the Minnesota Department of Health. I think taking this work on locally has really allowed us to more quickly respond with public health follow-up to the lab confirmed COVID cases we've had here in Cook County. Kristen DeRuta-Wharton has resigned her position as public health educator. I know that update came before the PHHS board last week. We are interviewing next week to fill this vacancy, which plays a key role in our response, particularly as it is the lead role for our local case investigation contact tracing. We're looking at strengthening our local case investigation contact tracing capacity, in part by exploring how to train in additional people to prepare for a potential surge in cases in the coming weeks and months. And finally, our current contact tracing team did a special feature on WTIP last week, which has aired in small portions, which is very informative and really has the goal of educating the public of what we are trying to do and how, with the hopes that people will continue to be receptive to the calls from public health if they have either tested positive or been identified as a close contact. In testing news, we were selected last week as one of the counties to receive access to free mail-in saliva tests. This is a pilot project of the Minnesota Department of Health. The state put out a press release, and then we did also put out a local press release last week to talk about the program. So it's a program where people go online, they request the specimen collection kit, they log on to a telehealth appointment, a provider watches them give the specimen, and then it gets mailed back into a state-run facility in the Twin Cities metro. So it's one additional option for testing that is now available to community members at no cost. Let's see, other projects that have happened in the last couple of weeks. I worked with Brady Powers to put together a health and safety training for election judges at his request, which is posted on the county's YouTube channel. It's basic infection control procedures, and it's all based on CDC information. Finally, we have a collaborative project with all local schools, daycare facilities, and Sawtooth Mountain Clinic to distribute thermometers alongside information on how to access testing, how to do COVID screenings at home, and safe Halloween tips, which will be going out to daycares and schools tomorrow. So that's a project we've been working on for quite some time, and happy to see it come to fruition in time for Halloween. And that is my update.
Thank you. I was listening to our radio station, local radio station this morning, and heard Krista Wharton give her report, and it was excellent. It was very timely. So thank you for your part in that. And also, I just would like to share a personal thing that I did take the saliva test yesterday, and I had ordered it last Friday when we had a press release on it. And I just tell people that you do need a camera on your computer because you have to follow a lot of security protocols from your driver's license to having them look at barcodes when you receive your package. But it seems like it's a very good system. It was rather seamless. It took me about 20 minutes total time, and it's on its way today. So I think that's just another option for people. I basically wanted to do it to see how it works. And it worked pretty well. So with that, I would open it up for questions or comments from the commissioners, and we'll do that by roll call. We'll start with Commissioner Storley. Question or comments about Grace's reporting?
Thank you, Chairman Bertheim. No questions. I just, I wish people would understand that group gathering is not good. And I don't know what you can do other than what you're doing already, Grace. So thanks again for your report and keeping up with everything. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Grace, for the update and your work. And I just had one question. Now that we've moved into the new phase with community spread, I was just wondering if through contact tracing and case investigations, if it's mostly focused on travel and interactions with people, or if there are questions around habits, daily habits, hygiene habits, mask wearing, if there are direct questions about efforts to stay safe. Over.
So are you asking, Commissioner Mills, if we get questions about like how to stay safe from the people that we talk to in contact tracing? Or are you asking kind of where we see most of our cases coming from at this point?
I'm asking if within the contact tracing case investigation process, if there are questions asked to COVID patients or close contacts about safe practices surrounding COVID.
I think so. When we do the case investigation with the person who tests positive, we try to help them talk through the time that they were in so we look back to the 14 days prior to symptom onset to try to see if we can pinpoint a link to another known positive case and try to pinpoint different places where there may have been exposure to COVID-19. And then when we get into the contact tracing, we try to focus in on the 2 days prior to symptom onset, which is considered to be the beginning of the time that a person is contagious. And then it's really mostly focused on the physical distancing. So have you been within 6 feet for a total of 15 minutes or more in the period from the time that we're talking to an individual to 2 days prior to symptom onset? And then that would be considered the biggest risk factor for transmission. So and often, I mean, you can think about your personal life too, like it's often household members because you're in the same household. Household members are very often considered contacts because, to consider like a partner or children in the household, it's very probable that you've been within 6 feet for a total of 15 minutes over a few day period. But then that's the biggest kind of risk factor that we look at, and that's how we make that judgment call on who would be considered a close contact and would need to quarantine, is that 6 feet for a total of 15 minutes during the time a person is infectious. But in terms of hand hygiene, for example, or covering your cough, that doesn't really come out very well in the contact tracing in the in-case investigation interview. It's more that physical distance piece that comes out.
Thank you. That answers my question. And yeah, I guess clearly there are guidelines of what you should and should not ask. And I was just wondering, for the community's sake, if through the investigations and the contact tracing, if there are those kind of general questions like, how do you feel you've been, how do you feel about the precautions you've been taking? Have you been very loose? Have you been very careful and still you got, sick and that sort of thing? But I think you answered my question well. Thank you. Over.
Okay. Commissioner Dukeric?
Morning, Grace. New decal arrived, mental health matters. And then every year we talk about the flu shot, and you did cover it a little bit. Can we just give a little more attention to that and its importance and significance this year with COVID, and why the combination of safe practices against transmitting COVID and also the flu shot are really important?
Sure. So every year when flu season begins, there is an increased load on our medical system, with people coming into the clinic for flu-like symptoms and some people needing hospital level care. And unfortunately, the symptoms for the flu and the symptoms for COVID are very difficult to distinguish from one another without that test. And so by getting a flu shot and lowering the chances that you will get the flu, or if you do get the flu, that you will have a serious case of the flu, then that lowers the number of people that are going to have flu-like symptoms and potentially infect other people with flu-like symptoms. And, any one of those individuals would be urged to go get a test and to stay home. And that is not only getting medical care, which of course we always want people to get appropriate medical care. But if we have many, many people who have not got a flu shot who could be potentially, not exhibiting those symptoms, it is a gift to the healthcare system. And it's also makes things easier in our community, because every time we are asking someone to go get a test, we're asking them and their family members to stay home together until the test results come back. So that's a huge burden on our families here in the community as well, because we have more people not able to go to work and school and needing to stay home. So really, it's a very small preventative step that we can take to kind of lighten the load on ourselves and also on our healthcare partners this season.
Thank you for that update.
Yes, and I think talking about the flu, really appreciate the messaging that there's quite a distinction between the flu and COVID-19. And some people think they're quite similar, but no, it really has implications for the individual as well as the community about the severity of the disease. Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks so much for what you do, Grace. It's been remarkable what you've done, and we really appreciate you working with us as a county.
Well, thank
Do we
you all
have-
for your support.
Okay, is Mike Keyport with us? I don't see him. So I guess we'll pass on that.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Chairman. Okay. I'm sorry about that. So we did get an email from Mike. He is having connectivity issues this morning, so he won't be able to join us. He may be able to jump on later, but right now he's unavailable.
All
I
right.
can give a few updates I know have been kind
Thank
of
you.
in Mike's world really quick here.
Sure.
We were able to procure a large amount of hand sanitizer and do an additional distribution in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce last week. There was also a planner from the Department of Homeland Security who met with the EOC to do it was called a mid-incident after action report. And essentially it was a chance for us at the EOC to come together and reflect on what's worked well so far in the incident and what we would want to improve upon going forward. And that is something that Blaine is the planner's name. He's going to put together the results for us and get them to us for review. Those are the two big things that stick out from what I know of the last couple of weeks in emergency management.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the next agenda item, the Highway Department. We have with us this morning Robbie Haas as our highway engineer. And this is in regard to approving a resolution for the designation of unorganized territory roads. And this is a first for Cook County. Thanks to you, Robbie. I believe it involves around $40,000 that we didn't have before. And so thank you for great work that you're doing here and improving our situation. So Robbie, turn it over to you at this time.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, the nice introduction. And I wish I could take credit for this, but I can't. This was the work of a lot of other people before I got here and our staff here. I'm hoping to just kick this across the finish line at this point. But for those that aren't super familiar with how we get our funding, I'll just do some real broad strokes, I guess. We get a lot of our state aid funds come from the Highway Users Distribution Fund. A lot of people call that the gas tax. From the state of Minnesota, gas tax it's a very small portion of it. There's also licensing fees, motor vehicle sales tax, and some other stuff. Anyways, so out of that gigantic fund, 5% of that gets distributed to the counties, every county in the state. And then within that 5%, there are the town bridge account, the town road account, and another flexible highway account, but we won't get into that one. So the town bridge and the town road account. Counties have to declare miles that would be considered a town road. And so what that is just roads that exist within the limits of a town, kind of exactly like it sounds like. In Cook County, for example, though, for Schroeder and Tofte and Lutsen combined, we declare, I think it's like 5.3 miles, which is a whole lot of nothing. So annually, what we get for that is about $3,000. And that's just pass through, so that goes straight to the towns. We have a number of roads that technically aren't within any sort of township limits. And what we put together was approximately, I think it was almost 60 miles of roads that would be considered unorganized territory roads. And if it makes it make more sense, if you think of a fake town called unorganized territory, then all the math and the logistics of how this worked kind of makes more sense. That's what I had to do at least. Then it made more sense to me. So there's about, I think it's a little under 3,000 people that live in this town of unorganized territory that would have approximately 60 miles of roads. And so when you use the distribution formulas that MnDOT uses to kind of allocate this, that would net us just in roadway maintenance funds between $30,000 and $40,000 a year extra. And that's money we can use on those roads, which is also money we don't have to use from the levy on those roads. Additionally, our town bridge account has read zero as far back as I can see. Designating these roads, I think, would put, I think it was something like 8 or 9 bridges into the town bridge account, which again is additional funding that isn't considered in the calculations that we have. I don't know how much that number is off the top of my head, but the allocations are similar based on population and mileage. So yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity for us to, take advantage of, not even taking advantage of, just the opportunity that the state already presents to to every other county, and really get on board with that and help the county, help here maintain roads, Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, I'll just ask one. Looking at all the roads, does that mean if a road is listed here on your 83 or whatever it is, no more than that, 103 of them, do we, in all these situations, provide some kind of level of service, or is that means that that's how they qualify, that the county has done some kind of work on these roads and it was therefore done previously from our general levy?
Sure. So all of those roads currently are county roads.
They are. Okay.
They are, every single one on there. So we're not making new roads. We're not taking over roads. This is just existing roads that are on the county road system. And so all we're doing is, instead of technically, it's kind of, think of like Highway 7. Technically, it's County State Aid Highway 7.
Okay.
Some people call it County Road 7. Some people call it, 5th Street? So it's no different than, all we're doing is redesignating it unorganized territory road.
Okay.
But yeah, so that kind of feeds into those. So the level of service would not change. None of that changes. We still maintain them, grade them, plow them, whatever we've been doing, that stays the same.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions before we take action on this? Just state your name. We won't do a roll call.
This is Commissioner Mills.
Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Robbie. I got your email explaining things, and really appreciate you reaching out and getting ahead of any questions and answering questions I did have preemptively. In your example, though, County Road 7 is not one of these roads, right? Because that's County State Aid.
Correct. Yeah, that's not on. There are rules for redesignating state aid highways as unorganized territory, but in our case, none of the state aid highways were on the list. So.
Yep. And thank you for clarifying that. And thank you for, as you said, bringing this across the finish line. I know it's been in the works, and appreciate the research being done. Just as devil's advocate, is if there's something we missed and didn't think of, we also have the power to reclaim these as well, right?
Absolutely.
Switch back and lose $40,000, but we do have that power.
Yeah. So if there is, and I think it's going to warrant just double checking this list, and we can do that one more time before I have to submit our miles every year. And so that's why this kind of popped up. It's due, I think, in the middle of November. And so I was like, well, why not? And this is for the next year's funding. So, everything was done. So that's why I was like, why not we should just tackle this. But I can double check the list and go over all the roads on there and just make sure we're, dotting our i's, crossing our t's on it. I'm pretty confident in it, but I know I've already received a comment that one may or may not be in a township. So I'll double check that kind of stuff. But yeah, the county board has the power to do essentially whatever you want with county roads. So.
Yeah, thank you. And I didn't even necessarily mean for this list or for this upcoming year. I think it's great. I'm just saying down the, the road for a good pun there. We could a different board could change this back.
Correct.
If for whatever reason it's like, actually this would be better the other way. So
yes.
But I think it looks great for the foreseeable future here. So thank you again for your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Then we'll entertain a motion to approve this resolution as presented.
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Dukert, thank you. Is there support?
This is Commissioner Mills. I'll support.
Thank you. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Dukert,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Starley. You're mute, Commissioner Starley. I see your lips.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bersheim is aye, passes unanimously. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll move on to land services. Tim Nelson is with us, hopefully. The first agenda item pertaining to land services is proposed vacation rental ordinance amendments, and we're to accept a recommendation from the Planning Commission to adopt some proposed amendments. Tim, are you available?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair. Thank you and good morning. Yeah, what we have for you this morning is basically a list of, again, more kind of housekeeping changes in general. There's a lot of clarifications in there. The first one is just clarifying the distinction between the adoption date and the enactment date. There's really not much in terms of substantive changes. We did change the renewal period of the license from further on. We had first been concerned about keeping in line with, say, the lodging tax rotation, but we decided to, instead of having the renewal period past the first of the year, we wanted people to have that from into December through the end of January, so that they can have their license renewed, so that they can rent during the winter season as well, which made sense. And then the further on is just clarifications in terms of the proration of the license fee during a operation's first year of operation. And then the last provision is just clarifying that there is the after the fact fee that this board had indeed adopted a few months back. We did have the public hearing for it on October the 14th at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission received no comments, written or verbal. Nothing was verbal at the Planning Commission meeting. There was just a couple questions of clarification, but then the Planning Commission went ahead and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the adoption of all the changes to you. And at that point, I guess I will just open up for any questions you might have of me.
Okay, we'll just open this up for any questions or comments. If you just indicate your name as Commissioner, and we'll.
Commissioner Mills.
Commissioner Mills, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Tim. And I just want to point out that this is an active revision, and that if more revisions are needed going forward, we can go back to it and do it again. So I really appreciate the work and the effort you, your staff, and the Planning Commission has put into this, and that we can make changes if necessary. Over.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Any other comments, questions? Okay, entertain a motion to approve this as presented.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Is there support?
Starley support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Bershheim's aye, passes unanimously. Thank you, Tim, for all your work on that, as mentioned by Commissioner Mills. And we'll go on to the grant joint powers agreement approval. Go ahead with that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, commissioners. What you have here, this is kind of a continuation of an item that has been in front of this board several times. We partnered up with Lake County's Environmental Services Department and then Cook County's SWCD and Lake County's SWCD. So the four of us entities combined submitted a one watershed, one plan grant for different kinds of projects, but we kind of accumulated all of our projects into one grant. That grant had been approved. This board has reviewed that grant application and accepted that. The state went ahead and approved it. And what they did is, because there are four entities involved and two pairs of similar entities, they split the funding into between jointly administered by both SWCDs and then jointly administered by Cook and Lake County's Land Services, Environmental Services. The Cook County SWCD is the fiscal agent, acting as the fiscal agent for the SWCD portions of the funding, and Lake County's Environmental Services is going to be acting as the fiscal agent for the Cook and Lake County Land Services, Environmental Services activities. Our portion of the grant is dealing predominantly in the compliance and upgrade of the Lakeshore Septic Compliance Program that we had adopted many years ago. And we have a number of non-compliant systems that still need to be brought into compliance. So that's our portion of it. This agreement that's in front of you here is just detailing the agreement between us and Lake County that they would go ahead and be the fiscal agent for our portion of the grant, that we would be submitting all of our invoices and everything through them, and then that they would be the liaison with the state. I have submitted the agreement to the county attorney for review, and at this point, I guess I would still just turn it over for any questions that you might have.
Okay, will it open up? We will open up for questions, comments from any commissioner. State your name. Hearing none.
Commissioner Mills.
Oh, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Tim. And just want to commend the work that we can do with our regional partners, and particularly Lake County. I'm really happy we can have partnerships like this, and it's good to have those connections and leverage our resources. And I hope we can do more of it in the future. Over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Then we'll entertain a motion to approve this joint powers agreement between Lake County and Cook County.
So
Commissioner
moved.
Mills, I'll second.
I think we got Commissioner Dukirk making the motion by a hair of a second. And then we also have a support from Commissioner Mills. So thank you. We'll do a roll call vote on that. Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bershheim, aye. Thank you, Tim, for all your work on that as well, keeping us up to date and striving just to improve our situation, and definitely collaboration with whoever we can is very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll go to the next item, which is our county attorney. And we're looking at hopefully a final draft of and maybe approval of our bylaws that we've been working on. I really want to express appreciation and also commend Attorney Hicken for her work on this. We've been doing this for some time, goes back years, but even in this last year, I think we've had seven drafts on this through our committee of the whole and other meetings. And you've been diligent, sticking with us and patient with our concerns. And I want to also thank the commissioners. We've, I think, really had a lot of good consensus discussions on this, and hopefully we've brought forth something that we can agree with. But as far as a matter of procedure, we did have an itemized list that Attorney Hicken had presented to us, and I will also call on her for comment in just a minute. I think as far as our procedure is concerned today, that I would entertain some comments, and definitely they're appreciated. And then if you have some kind of concern still with this draft language, we would ask that you craft up an amendment to the draft. And then we'd act on those preceding, hopefully, the adoption of the entire document. Any questions about that? Okay, and then Attorney Hicken, would you like to just add some more comments before we go into a roll call on taking a look at this and hopefully finalizing it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, commissioners. And really, I appreciate your patience as a team to get through this document and really take it seriously and put the time and the thought into it that you have. I feel like when there have been questions about language, those questions and concerns have been heard, and you've really put the time into discussing what would be the best option that the most folks can agree on. And I think with limited exceptions, most of this document has been agreed upon by most of the majority of the board. The most recent changes that were made are outlined in my report to the commissioners that was attached to the agenda. Certainly, you have not had an opportunity to comment on all of the language because there was some direction to me at the last board meeting to do some drafting on my own prior to submitting for the board packet. So I would assume that you've had an opportunity to look at the draft. I attempted to highlight in yellow all of the parts that were changed since draft number 6. We're now on draft number 7. And I'm happy to help you with amendments and make changes as we speak too.
Okay, thank you. So we'll do a roll call, and I'll just go by random. If you'd like to make some comments in general, and then if you have a specific amendment, would you please offer that? And then we'll sort of try to craft our way through that as a draft and then move on. So I'll start with Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Attorney Hicken, for your continued work on this. And yeah, I went through the kind of the final parts that we asked you to kind of flesh out there, and I don't have any concerns myself, and so therefore I don't have any suggested changes or anything like that. I appreciate the edits we made to the order of business just to keep things consistent, and still we want to recognize both anniversaries and hires and retirements. So I guess that'd be it. Just want to recognize that, again, this is another document that I expect we'll be revisiting in the future as we find things here and there, possibly small changes, possibly substantive changes with boards in the future that want to make tweaks here and there. But otherwise, that's all I got. Thank you. Over.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dukirk, I know you've spent many years, I think, involved in this more so than the rest of us. So would appreciate your comments and any suggestions that you have.
Just the comments of what steps moving forward. Obviously, there's no such thing as a perfect document where everyone will be in consensus, but when the new commissioners come on, helping them to understand what this document means. And, you know, if you're looking for an example, we agreed on page 12, any communication exchanged by the public body during a meeting may be subject to government data. I think that that's going to require a lot of training with commissioners and understanding. Like during this meeting, I received an email from the county attorney, and I don't know if I should open it and read it if it pertains to this meeting, or if I shouldn't read it, or if I should wait, or how that works. So even me, with all of my years, I was never really sure what we should or shouldn't be doing. So training would be good moving forward. Otherwise, I'm happy with the document.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Starley?
Thank you, Chairman Bersheim. I have no idea that this will be perfect either, but it's a good guide, and I'm pleased that we've worked really hard on the language of this. And thank Attorney Hicken for hanging in with our word-friendly options here. And I think it's a good piece, and I'd like to see it move forward.
Okay, thank you. Yes, as far as my comments, I think we've worked very hard on this, and we've tried to reach a good consensus through our process. And again, want to really recognize the work of Attorney Hicken and thank all of you. And this is a work in progress, as always, but I think we've put a lot of time into it, a lot of discussion, and that says a lot. That says a lot right there, rather than just to adopt something that was put before us. So hopefully we got a great thing for the county, and it'll help us in our decision-making process. And I think, as Commissioner Dukirk mentioned too, that it will cause a good amount of insight into maybe the training that's needed with new commissioners for board development as well. So with that, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt our bylaws and procedures that have been reviewed and as presented. Would anyone like to make that motion?
Chairman, I would like to move that we accept this draft and move forward with the completion of our bylaws for the near future.
Okay, so I assume that we're going to approve this going forward, and do we have support?
This is Commissioner Mills. I'll support.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Mills gives support, so we'll do a roll call vote on this. Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Starley?
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim? Aye. Passes unanimously. Thanks again so much. A lot of work went into it, but it was all worthwhile. And hopefully the product will show and will be adapted and adopted and revised, and I'm sure in the future. Let's move on to the auditor. We've had some changes that were submitted to us yesterday in regards to these two topics. And I'd call on Brady Powers at this time for first item, resolution providing for the sale of taxable general obligation sales tax revenue bonds series 2020A. And we have a resolution, and we may have a presentation. I don't know if you got that worked out, Brady Powers.
Yeah.
As to some updated information that we have from Ehlers on this.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, yeah, as you remember, we've been considering issuing bonds to refinance our existing sales tax bonds to take advantage of the lower interest rates. And the plan was to take bids on those bonds yesterday, which Ehlers did on our behalf. And the results of those bids have now been inputted into the resolution that's in the board packet. So the board packet's been updated with a final resolution for the sale of these refinance bonds. But before you consider approval of that resolution. Bruce Kimball of Ellers is here, and he'd like to give a short presentation on the results of that bond sale. And hopefully he'll be able to share his screen with his report. Otherwise, I also sent it out by email this morning. So Bruce, are you there?
I am. Good morning, commissioners and Brady.
Good morning, Bruce. Go
You
ahead.
might have noticed that I just changed house locations on the fly. So thanks for giving me some time to do that, Brady. Well, commissioners, let me try to share my screen here and just give you a few highlights from the bond sale that Brady referenced. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So as Auditor Powers mentioned, this was a taxable advance refunding of the county's 2011B and 2012B sales tax bonds that, as you know, are funding a number of projects that you undertook about a decade ago. And this is strictly for interest cost savings, as well as to actually accelerate the debt service on the 2012 bonds, and further to position the county to pay off all of these bonds early should sales tax collections continue as they have been, and with the encouraging signs that you're seeing in sales tax collections here over the last couple of months as well. But we really worked very hard between Ellers and the auditor's office to make sure that we weren't counting on too much revenues. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but I feel really good about the results, lowering the overall interest cost for the county by millions of dollars, and also positioning you again to pay off the bonds potentially as soon as 2027. But more on that in a moment. One thing I will note also is the final bond amount is $10,205,000. That's down a little over $200,000 from the offered amount. And so the resolution that you have in front of you as completed by Freiberger does reflect the $10,205,000 final principal amount. All right. So as Brady mentioned, we took bids on the county's behalf at noon yesterday, and we received 3 bids. The winning bid came from Baird out of Milwaukee with a true interest cost of 1.46%. We had been estimating 1.67%, so this was about 21 basis points better than projected. And we actually saw quite a bit of difference in the bids that were received, and Baird's was significantly ahead of the pack. So that was great for the county in terms of achieving even better interest savings than what we had been hoping for. I won't go through a whole lot of additional details here, but please stop me if you do have questions. And one thing I will note is here you'll note under the notes that the bonds that mature in 28 and thereafter are callable as of February 1 of 2027. So that's really only about six years away, if you think about it. And again, based on the projections that we worked on with your team, we think that you'll have a very good chance of being able to at least pay off the vast majority of the remaining bonds as of February 2027, and hopefully all of the bonds. And then there'd be an open question at that point, right, as to whether there would be additional local option sales tax projects that you would want to go to the voters and to the legislature for approval on, or what to do basically going forward with that 1% sales tax capacity that would be freed up after that point. Moving on to the bid tabulation, one thing I will note here, so this is the winning bid from Baird. You can see that this was a so-called premium bid. You've seen these before. I'd point out that the rates start out at 2% and then drop down after the call date to 1.15 to 1.85. But the actual yields, and this is really the true cost to the county, range from 0.3% up to 1.85%. And so the difference between those 2% coupons and the much lower yields gets reflected in the price or the premium that they offered. And that was really the reason why we were able to drop the bond amount by a little over $200,000, was to take that excess money that Baird was offering you and use that to buy down the size of the bond issue, since we knew exactly what we needed to refinance the bonds. Then the other 2 proposals from Piper Sandler and BOK are also listed Piper Sandler would have still been right around our pre-sale estimate. VOK would have been a little bit higher, but we're thrilled with the Baird proposal and the much better interest rate that they bid for the bonds. Then I won't go through these bond schedules in too much detail, but I will note, you'll recall from the pre-sale discussion that, again, after a lot of analysis, we collectively agreed to use $2.8 million of your existing lost sales tax fund balance to buy down the refunding. That $2.8 million is reflected here, as well as the $200,000 of premium, and then the final right-sized par amount. And then you can see all the uses, including the deposit to the refunding escrow to pay off the existing 2011 and 2012 bonds. The new debt service schedule, after all of the resizing and restructuring, is on this next page. I won't go into too much detail here. Brady is well aware that for a little bit of time, you'll also be making some principal payments on the existing bonds through this so-called partial net cash advance refunding. So we'll make sure that's all squared away with his team in terms of what bonds get paid over the next year and a half or so. And then I wanted to just focus on the savings, since that's probably of greatest importance to you as commissioners. So this is where we really compare the apples to apples, old debt service versus the new debt service. And if you go to this right-hand column, you can see that net of, or after factoring in, let me put it this way, the first cut at this, they look at the $2.8 million of cash as cash that you could have used someplace else. And as much as we might want to say, well, the structuring software shouldn't do that, it's kind of hard loaded in there when there's a cash contribution. So you see that this shows up as negative savings. Even with that, you're still looking at $1.9 million of net savings, even if you were to assume that you could be using that 2.8 million someplace else, which you really can't. However, if you want to get a true sense for what the county is saving, I would suggest that you add back the $2.8 million into the 1.9. And what you can see then is that you're saving upwards of $4.7 million in total, comparing old debt service to new debt service. So it's really a tremendous reduction as well as a shortening of the debt service. And again, will position you very well to pay off those bonds potentially as soon as 2027. Then finally, commissioners, I wanted to just note this cash flow. You'll probably see versions of this going forward. We've done a lot of work to look at the collections you're receiving this year with the pandemic, as well as the rebound that you saw this summer and into the fall. And so we wanted to make sure you absolutely had enough money to pay the debt service that would be due through 2/1 of 21 and to pay the 2.8 million of cash. Even with that, you'll still have an ending cash balance after all those payments of 1.5 million that will then roll into the next fiscal period. And even assuming you still have somewhat reduced lost revenue collections next year for the next 12 months, let's say you have another year around 1.5 million, you're in great shape after that because you're only paying about $1 million of debt service on the bonds. And then going forward, you can see, assuming you rebound back up to about 1.8 million a year, which is what you collected last year in 2019, you can see that your debt service is roughly half of that, which allows you to bank about $900,000 a year. And here you can see you would have about 6.5 million available as of 2/27 to pay off just under 6 million of bonds outstanding. So we don't need to get into a whole lot more detail, but I'm really excited about this saving you money upfront and over the next 6 years. And then again, positioning you to pay off this obligation and free up that capacity for whatever you and the taxpayers of the county decide is appropriate. Finally, we did include the rating report. We did have a very productive rating conversation with Brady, as well as Rena joined the conversation. And the analyst was extremely complimentary of the preparation work that the county did. We were able to answer her questions with flying colors, and they did affirm the county's AA rating with this stable outlook, which is really the best we could ask for in this pandemic situation. But They love the fact that you've passed a fund balance policy that codifies that 75% fund balance reserve. I know that's been a target of the county for a number of years, but that was music to S&P's ears. And the fact that you're just really in strong financial condition and that you're weathering the pandemic, really remarkably well, gave them a lot of confidence in affirming the county's AA rating. Why don't I stop there and ask what questions you have? I know that was kind of detailed, but this is an important issue to make sure that you're confident in your ability to pay this debt from your sales tax revenues, since we never want to have to tap any other revenue sources to pay this bond. So hopefully that was helpful in that regard, and I will take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Let's do just state your name if you have any questions or comments in what's been presented by Bruce or by Brady so far.
This is Commissioner Mills.
Commissioner Mills, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Brady. I think this is an excellent opportunity. It's a good example of how the county and county staff is really looking out to be as to manage our finances as well as we can, and to really seek out opportunities to be fiscally responsible. And it's a testament to past boards to being in this position as well, to being in the financial shape that we're in to try to weather this pandemic. And I want us as a board to take that now and continue with being responsible. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and we should still be cautious, but also be proud and grateful for the work that's been done up to now. So thank you all. Over.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner Story?
Yes. Thank you, Bruce, for an excellent report. And we always like to have our A's and our double A's, that's for sure, for our rating. Question about over the next 6 years, is that paid off? Do we pay annually, or how do we pay into working the bonding down in 2027?
Yes, Commissioner Storley. So you'll have scheduled principal and interest payments. You'll pay interest every August 1, and then principal and interest every February 1, sort of following that. And so that schedule is fixed, but at the same time, assuming that your sales tax collections stay strong, Brady and his team will be continuing to bank and to invest those additional local option sales tax revenues, and building up that accumulated reserve that we would then look to use to pay off the bonds at the call date in 2027. We went back and forth on my team as to when was the earliest call date we could really ask for without incurring an interest rate penalty. And we agreed that it would be appropriate to shoot for about 6 years, given what we call the average life of this refunding. And that happened to work out really well with our cash flow projections, which you saw that showed that you would have, assuming I think relatively moderate and reasonable sales tax projections, that you would have enough built up by 2027 to pay off the bonds. Mm-hmm. So it was a good convergence of both what we thought the market would accept, as well as what your cash flow projections would seem to indicate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, a first order of action, and I believe would be to pass, have a motion for a resolution providing for the sale of taxable general obligation sales tax. Would someone like to make a motion?
This is Commissioner Mills. I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Mills, thank you. Is there support?
Storley, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim? Aye. Thank you. And in regard to, the AA bond rating, I'd like to also thank our Budget Advisory Committee and Rena for her work with that group that really crafted the language of the 75%. And we actually had to rework that in another board meeting. And here again was an example of working something out that really has some fruition for us in regards to our, financial management and stability and sustainability. Okay, then we'll go
Mr.
on.
Chair, could I just make one last comment if I could? I
Sure.
neglected to really give Auditor Powers the shout out I had meant to in terms of this was a fairly complicated refunding structure, and Brady asked outstanding questions to really push and prod to make sure that we were looking at all the angles, and he suggested that we look at some alternatives, and we just had really robust conversations about that. So I think we ended up with the absolutely correct structure to go with, and it worked out extremely well in terms of the bid you received. But there was a lot of behind the scenes work that Auditor Powers put in to make sure that this really did sync up as well as possible with the current and future revenues available. And it was definitely above and beyond in terms of taking our analysis and then digging into it and testing it. So it was a great process to work through with him.
Thank you, and thank you so much to Brady Powers for your excellent work above what's expected, especially during the election.
Right, exactly.
You're multitasking exceptionally well.
I've got to include.
Thank you.
I've got to include Kelly Berg in this also, as you didn't hear from her, but she's our financial coordinator, and she and I worked on most of those questions together that went to Bruce. So.
Thanks. Okay, then we have one other item, then would be the Revenue Bond Series 2020A. Approve a resolution providing for the sale of the county sales tax refunding bonds. Any comments or presentation on that, either Brady or Bruce? I guess it's go ahead.
Yes, the resolution is approved. The other item that was on there, the escrow agreement, that's separate, so we're not approving that today. That was in there just for reference because it's in the reference in the resolution.
So for a point of clarification, we do not need to make a resolution approval right now as on the agenda.
I think because we substituted the resolution, what was in there originally with the final numbers, I think that language is still there. But we've done it. We've approved the resolution for the sale of it.
So, okay, very good. So we can move on into delegates for voting at the MCIT annual meeting.
Correct.
Okay, would you bring any comments forward to the meeting at this time regard to the delegates for that?
Yeah, so the annual meeting, MCIT, is on December 11th. And the reason this comes up is that we have a delegate and an alternate right now. Ginny Storley is what they have for the delegate, and Bobby DeShaw is the alternate. So you will have to make a change there. So you need a motion to approve a delegate and an alternate for the MCIT annual meeting.
Okay. So who would like to, anyone want to volunteer to be the delegate?
If no one does, I will continue.
Okay, thank you. And I'd be willing to be the alternate if, unless someone else wants to, and then we'll do this with one motion. Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to approve Commissioner Storley as our delegate and alternate Commissioner Bershine.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Do we have support?
Second, Commissioner Mills.
Okay. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Commissioner Bershine, aye. Thank you. Then we have another item there, canvas board for general election. We need to approve the county canvas board.
Mr. Chair, so there's a 7-day period for canvas board. This year is a little bit different because of a court decision that we will count absentee ballots for the 7 days following the election, those that are postmarked as of election day. And so the alternatives for the canvas board, we cannot have the canvas board until after that 7-day period, which would be the 11th. It'd be the first day, which is a national holiday. So then it moves to the 12th or the 13th for the available days. And the sooner the better. So I'll ask you to approve November 12th at 10 a.m. for the canvas board to meet in the commissioner's room to canvass the results of the November 3rd general election. I'll put a caveat in that there's a counter suit right now that it's questioning the 7-day period. So we could have a change again, but I don't think we would change the canvas board date in any event. So I'll ask you to approve it as of this date, November 12th, 10 a.m. And commissioners are a part of the canvas board. We don't require that they both be there. We need 3 members of the canvas board to conduct it. But I think especially in this election, it would be, I think it would be important to have at least one commissioner there if possible.
Okay, so would that be part of the motion or a separate issue? I think it'd be a separate issue. So let's just see if there's a commissioner that would be willing to serve on that canvas board. I know I can't because I'm on the election.
Yeah, yes, I can serve on the canvas board.
Okay, anyone else?
I can be Dave's backup.
Okay, thank you. I don't think that needs to be part of the motion, correct, Auditor Powers, but we'll make a motion to approve the date. Okay.
Correct.
So I'd entertain a motion to select November 12th at 10 a.m. for the County Canvas Board to meet in the Commissioner's room to go over the November 3rd election.
So moved, Commissioner Mills.
Okay, Commissioner Mills, do we have support?
Support.
Okay,
Commissioner
thank
Dukirk.
you. Commissioner Dukirk, roll call vote. Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim. Thank you. Passes.
Thank you.
And we have going on to our administrator, James Yorkie. The first item is the AMC delegates or any other information that you may have in that regard. I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Indeed. Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Bersheim and commissioners. This item concerns our delegates to the Association of Minnesota Counties. AMC is having its annual conference on December 7th this year. It's going to be a virtual conference. Obviously, COVID is making it inadvisable to have an in-person conference. And so we need to make sure that our delegates are up to date so that they can vote in that meeting. AMC provides for 8 seats for Cook County. Those are our 5 commissioner seats. And then in the last year, we had Rena Rogers, Tim Nelson, and Allison McIntyre as the 3 staff delegates. This year, what I'm recommending is I will be taking the seat that was held by Rena previously. Tim has graciously agreed to open up his seat, and I'm recommending that Robbie Haas fill that, and he's agreed to serve in that capacity. And then also, because COVID is an ongoing issue, I think it's really important to keep Allison McIntyre as the 3rd staff delegate. So those are the recommendations for our delegates this year.
Okay. just one comment myself, since Commissioner DeShaw is not with us, we would have room for one more. If you can think of anyone, but we don't have to send 8, I don't think.
Yeah, and I'm not sure.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Mills.
Yes,
My understanding is it's 3 more than commissioners
thank you. Okay,
in the bylaws, so I don't know that we can. Over.
okay, very good, thank you. Was a question I had. Very good. So we'll entertain a motion to add those people as mentioned.
So moved, Commissioner Dukirk.
Okay, is there support?
Support, Commissioner Mills.
Okay, thank you. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Starley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Bershon, aye. Very good, passes unanimously. Any other updates from our county administrator?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention a few things. This is week 3 on the job now, and still drinking from the fire hose. There's a lot of new information to take in. Have been having a lot of meetings with folks, both internally and out in the community. And again, as I mentioned last time, people have continued to be extremely welcoming, which I really appreciate, and really generous in sharing their insights on life here in Cook County and some of the issues that we're grappling with. And I'm starting to get a sense of, you know, what those issues are, and also some of the different potential solutions to problems. Obviously, some of the issues that we're dealing with are not ones that have a single solution. Our housing situation being the perhaps most visible one of those. But we have a lot of great people in this community. We have really great leaders, and we have engaged citizens. And I'm really optimistic about the kinds of dialogue that we're going to be able to have moving forward. So just want to thank all the folks that I've met with so far who've been so welcoming. The other thing I want to mention specifically, I was able to meet with Bobby DeShaw and John Moran from the Grand Portage Tribal Council last week, and had a really great conversation with them. And they were very generous with their time and insights. And, you know, I think the county's relationship with Grand Portage is extremely important. And moving forward, I think it's one that I would like to help build. I know that we already work with the Tribal Council on issues related to public health and also transportation. But I think it's important to keep channels of communication open so that we can explore additional opportunities for collaboration. And so I just want to thank Bobby and John for their time. I've set quarterly meetings with them so that we can continue these conversations, and really look forward to seeing how that relationship grows. The other thing I wanted to add is just that as I mentioned, I'm starting to learn about some of the issues that we're contending with, both as a community and then also as an organization. And I do anticipate bringing specific issues forward in coming meetings for you all to consider and to get your feedback on, and to request perhaps action on some policies. So really am glad to be here. Thanks to all who've been so welcoming, and look forward to working with you all.
Well, thank you. And the feedback that I'm getting from the public is very gratifying. And want to commend you for what you said you were going to do. You're going to listen. And that's a wonderful trait. And I hope the fire hose doesn't drown you. It seems like it hasn't so far. So yeah, it's a good, yeah, it's a hard thing to imagine, but I'm sure that's what can happen, you know, figuratively speaking. So thanks so much for your work and joining us as our county administrator. Any other questions or comments for our county administrator? Just state your name.
This is Commissioner Mills.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, James, for your work and getting out there and having these conversations. I I'm really pleased to hear what I've been hearing as feedback, and I'm very pleased to hear your updates. So please carry on and continue and let us know if there's anything more you need from us as a board or just as individual commissioners. Over.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. We'll move on to employee concern, commissioner concerns. Any commissioner reports, please state your name and you could make a report.
Chairman Bershheim?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't have any reports other than I'd like to report on a report. I just want to acknowledge this great packet that we received on the safe route to schools. You know, it was a huge group of people that worked on it, from Commissioner Dukirk and Andrea Orst and Justin Ostie from ARDC, and a great updating. And it's just a wonderful review and where we're going in 2020 and so forth. So I just want to acknowledge and thank everybody for working on that. It was great.
Okay. Meeting updates. I have one that's announced here. Meetings to note that we're going to have a Joint Powers Zoom meeting tonight at October 27th at 5:30. And the topic will be on land acknowledgement. There's been a work group that Commissioner Dukirk and I have been on. I believe we've met 4 times to craft some language that hopefully we could share with other members of the Joint Powers Group this evening to get some reaction, and possibly people could consider it as a land acknowledgement for their organization. We do need a little bit more draft work on it and are open to suggestions. So want to really thank that work group for all the work that they've done in trying to craft some language that we can present to this group this evening. Any other meetings to note from any of the commissioners? Okay, we just have correspondence, memos, recognition of staff, and that would be Alex Murray, our new one that was brought up during the consent agenda. Welcome, Alex Murray, for the assessor appraiser trainer. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting unless someone has other comments.
This is Commissioner Mills. I'll move to adjourn.
Is there support?
Starley, support.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Starley.
Aye.
Commissioner Mills.
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk.
Aye.
Commissioner Bershheim, aye. Thank you. We'll adjourn the meeting. Be safe and kind, everyone. Have a good